And we're live. Hey guys, this is Brad the Impaler. I'm here with Tailed Feather. Thank you for, or Tailed Feature. I apologize. Thank you for joining us.
Hello there.
Hi. So what's your channel about, man?
Well, I've joined the myriad of people who are calling out SJWs and feminists and whatnot. Just just generally try and make some sense of the things that I see in day-to-day life in the West. And just have a good rant and yeah, hopefully open up some dialogues with people. No one's really been forthcoming yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Having a conversation, opening a dialogue is definitely very important when you're talking about social issues like this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so many people with opinions, and most people are so strident with their own ones that they forget that sometimes just being a bit empathetic and listening to other people on the other side, to
Right.
better understand them, so you're not misrepresenting them and things.
Exactly. Yeah. That's one of the main reasons why when I first started my channel, I did a stream with Demotivator Opinion, Tim Blake. And I didn't bring him on to wreck him. I didn't bring him on to just, give him shit. I brought him on to actually find out what he had to say. And I think there needs to be a lot more of that, a lot more actual conversation, because that would also make it easier to tear him apart. Just saying.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I mean. And if you've got to understand your opponent so you can, yeah, as you say, you can tear them apart a bit better if
Right.
necessary.
Exactly.
Or time, it comes down to a lot of definitions of words sometimes,
Yep.
or sometimes you're coming from the same place but have arrived at different conclusions.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it's like I say, in everybody's own version of their story, they're the good guy. Nobody's setting out to say I'm gonna wreck people's lives and I have zero chill. I mean, people don't usually act like that. Um, so their version of things is really what they think they're doing good in, and so that's why I think we should give people a chance to actually say what they want to say.
Yeah, as you say, everybody sort of thinks they're right, and
Yeah.
there's quite a good example of this. Recently, I'm part of this political campaigning group, and we do various things in our local area, and we've got links with other places in Scotland. Yes, as one person in the chat has just said, "Och, aye," because I'm from Scotland.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm with this group, and recently, just before Trump was elected, we were talking about who we thought would win and who we would prefer, and I said that I would probably vote for Trump if I was forced to vote for either of them. And I might as well have said that I wanted to dig up their mothers and skull fuck them in front of them. Honestly,
Yeah.
it was the vitriol, and it was, oh, I can't believe that you would. I mean, they'd completely bought into the media hype and could not see on the other side whatsoever.
Yeah.
But the good thing was we actually had a public meeting about a week ago now, and most people there are left leaning. Most of them kind of dip their toe into the social justice sphere. So I was a bit concerned as I was sat there, being someone who voted to leave the European Union and had a very slight preference for Trump. I thought that I'd probably be singled out, or at least spoken of in the same way that that most people are being spoken to at the moment, or at least about, because
Yeah.
I mean, not a lot of people knew that I voted that way or thought that way. But actually, we did have a discussion, and most people were saying we need to find out where we've been going wrong.
Yeah. And that's
Exactly, yeah. So I'm hopeful that opinions from people, other opinions might actually be allowed to be said without someone jumping down the throat.
Exactly, and that's not something I've really covered in my live streams or my videos yet, but that's definitely something is, where they went. They need to figure out where they went wrong, and where they went wrong was not listening to the people that they're calling racists and misogynists and homophobic and all that other shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's the amount of times I've said to people, I said, you're just gonna, you're gonna make the people that you're basically gonna harden people's beliefs.
Exactly. Yeah.
Make it worse, especially now that a lot of people have doubled down on this, calling people racist, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. And because the vast majority of these people aren't racist, but they've redefined the word racism to basically mean anything, or sexism, or any of these things. And
that's the thing.
It doesn't stand up to scrutiny, but when so many people believe it, then it's hard to actually say anything without being shot down.
Definitely, and that's the thing that really gets me about this the whole SJW thing is they keep insulting you. It's just, I'm going to insult you for this, I'm going to insult you for that. Oh, look, Bering's here.
Hi, Bering.
He called us fucking sexist homophobes. That's what we get.
Oh, well, that's absolutely true. Absolutely,
we're shitlords.
Can't deny that.
I'll proudly admit I'm a shitlord.
Yeah, I want to get a T-shirt like Jeff Holiday's got that says "shitlord" on it. It's great.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody that I spoke to would actually get it, but they'd probably be insulted because it says the word "shit" on it or something.
Right. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that you are wearing a shirt with cursing on it. Oh, go fuck yourself.
I know. It's so puritanical. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, what the hell? I don't understand why you restrict people think like language, like words. What makes some words worse than others? You know what I'm saying? Like, I use fuck to just show how much emphasis I'm putting on something. I'm not actually saying it to insult somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and even if you were using it to insult somebody, it doesn't take away from the actual argument. If your argument should stand up on its own merit. If there's an insult in there as well, that doesn't matter. But they home in on the insult, or often the perceived insult. Even it's not even they just say, "Oh, that's offensive."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but you're offended by that. I don't really care. Does that actually? Well, pardon the pun. Does that have any bearing on what I'm actually saying or trying to put across? It doesn't make any sense, and it's dishonest and it's lazy, I think.
Okay, so my roommate just brought me something. This just in. 8 people were arrested at a White Lives Matter rally in Austin. I live in Austin, Texas. 8 people were arrested on Saturday when a small group of protesters calling themselves White Lives Matter were confronted by counter demonstrators supporting Black Lives Matter at the Texas state capitol, near where Governor Greg Abbott had earlier dedicated a monument recognizing the contribution of African Americans to the state. I don't care. Texas Department of Public Safety spokesman Sergeant Victor Taylor said 4 of the arrests were for assault, 2 for evading arrest. Wait, how can you be arrested for evading arrest? Like, don't you have to have a reason to be arrested in order to evade arrest?
Yeah, I think there's something similar here. I think it's obstructing a police officer in the line of duty or something like that, and basically means that if they're arresting you for something and you decide to run away, that's an extra charge against you.
Right, but the way this article is written is it says 2 were arrested for evading arrest, which doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
Seems a bit sort of circular there, doesn't it?
Yeah, 1 for disorderly conduct and 1 for interference with public duty. That sounds like what you were just talking about. 2 of those arrested were on Capitol grounds and the others on adjacent streets. Some protesters assaulted other protesters, Taylor said. We don't what? We don't like that. No. We don't know for sure which side they were on. A lot of them were commingled. So here, so it just seems to me like now people like we were just discussing, people are getting more galvanized in their ideas. So now you have White Lives Matters protesters happening, and it's America's really divided right now.
Yeah, well, I think we're quite divided in the UK, even in Scotland at the minute as well. It just seems to be this big sort of upheaval. I mean, I don't know if it's just because I'm more politically aware than I was a few years ago. I don't know if it's always really been like this, but it does seem to be that there does seem to be quite a lot of unrest and big divides. You know, Brexit and the Scottish independence referendum. You know, families were kind of split up, and I suppose it's the same now with Trump being elected. You know, that you see these posts, these Hillary supporters saying, "Oh, I'm going to disown and kill my family member who voted for Trump," and it's just complete overreaction and just a complete stubbornness that because no one wants to sit down and say, right, why did you vote for that? It's just no, you voted that way. I disagree. Therefore, no contact with you anymore.
Right.
Just,
because you voted that way, you're a deplorable human being. And I blame Hillary Clinton and the media for that entire mindset.
Yeah. So just go back to the White Lives Matter thing. I was just trying to think if I don't know. Did you hear about the Black Lives Matter UK?
No. Oh yeah. Okay. So I did hear a little bit about the Black Lives Matter UK, where they were even saying things like climate change is racist and stuff like that.
That was really their only point, I think, was that because global warming, climate change has more of a damaging effect on black and coloured people. Even though actually it has more of a negative effect on those who are poor, it just happens to be that some of those poor people are also brown and black. So there's plenty of minorities, and amongst that, plenty of white people. It doesn't matter though, because obviously the identity is more important.
Yeah.
But and it turned out that it was mostly white, upper middle class people, you know, with double-barreled surnames, and they were the ones that were actually protesting and stopping planes from actually taking off.
Yeah.
And but the leader of Black Lives Matter UK is a black woman, and the irony, you couldn't make this shit up.
Yeah.
Was that she was actually on a plane at that point. She was flying to some conference in Brazil or something like that about feminism.
Yep. I remember that. I remember reading about that. Because people send things to my Twitter all the time, or they'll send things to my email, and they'll be like, "Hey, check this out," and I'll either do a video about it or I'll tweet about it and be like, "Fuck that."
Yeah, I honestly thought that it was some kind of comedy story or something. You know, it just everything. It was just all the tropes that we use about you know about the SJWs, and I thought it's actually come true. It was a prophecy. You know,
you can't write this shit.
No, you can't. You really can't, because you know people sort of say flippant things about SJWs, and I don't actually like using that term because it's quite a collectivist sort of term. You know,
it is
people with these sort of sets of beliefs anyway. They seem to be the ones with the privileges, and it's just projection. I think a lot of it.
Well, if anything, climate change is a racist problem against Asians, because look at China. China has horrible atmospheric conditions right now because of their
all the smog.
Yeah, all the smog, and a lot of people in the more populated areas are wearing masks because it's just so thick that it's causing breathing issues. Yeah,
I actually saw a video of someone in an apartment somewhere I think it was in China, Beijing, maybe. Somewhere, some big city out that sort of way. and yeah, they couldn't. They were up on 23rd floor, 30th floor, or something, and they couldn't see out the window at all.
Mm-hmm. Jeez, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. I mean, all the windows are airtight, and all the air that's sort of pumped in is all being treated and everything. It just
Yeah, that's
but yeah, it definitely affects Asian people more than it affects people
black
in
people.
London. Yeah, black people specifically in London as well.
Yeah, yeah. It's insane. They'll take anything and they'll make it a cause, and they'll take any group and make them part of the a part of the group that they're protecting. But the moment someone from that group steps out and says, "Well, maybe it's this way," well, they get their ass kicked. I mean, they're not even just yelled at; they're getting their ass kicked, like the
Yeah,
black guy.
they can't. Yeah, they can't apply their principles consistently on
No,
anything.
no,
That's the thing. If I believed in something, um, then someone like from that area or something says, "Well, actually, it's probably more likely this." I would go, "Oh, perhaps I was wrong about that. Let me look
right.
into it or something." But no, it's just instant. Either call them out on it and call them every name under the sun, or they say it's internalized, or they just block you on Twitter or whatever.
Well, what the one thing I mean that gets me is no matter what, they always find a way to say, well, it's because they're not recognizing their internalized racism or their
Yeah.
internalized misogyny. And fuck you.
Until they can actually demonstrate that there's such a thing, I'm going to be pretty skeptical about things like that.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Because I think I was reading a book. I'm still reading it at the minute because it's quite academic.
Uh-huh.
Um, that it's not about anything to do with this at all. But there was a chapter on it, and I did a video about it. Basically saying essentially that because we now have a lack of religion in the West, obviously there's still religion, but it doesn't.
Right.
It's not quite
It's
as
not as
huge
pervasive.
as it once was.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's not as pervasive. That people cling on to different things and see them as sacred.
Hmm.
So things like equality and even things like smoking.
Yeah.
If anybody says anything positive about smoking,
Oh
you're
yeah.
just
You're done.
you're just an idiot,
Yeah.
and oh yeah, you can't do anything, you can't say anything about that, or breastfeeding in public, things like
Yeah.
that. So yeah, so it's almost like, well, we've essentially got the equality, but equality in the eyes of the law anyway.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so and
Well,
so
that's
it's
all that
almost just like,
matters. You can't force equality on people. You can't force a group of people to accept another group of people if they don't want to.
well, absolutely, yeah, I completely agree with that. But it's like they've held on to this thing, this idea of equality, and they're like, well, we've got it now, and they're like, shit, well, what do we do now then? More equality. That's what we need. More. We
Right.
need more. And needs. Oh
More
well, we're
equality.
not exactly 50-50. We're not 50-50 here, or this thing here isn't quite
Yep.
the way that we want it. So we'll use the guise of equality just to basically push an agenda and just keep it going, because they're holding on to this thing, and it's just replacing sort of one addiction with another. It's like alcoholics that go to the AA. They
Oh
basically
yeah.
get religion shoved down their throats, and that's
Yep.
replacing the addiction to alcohol with religion instead, because
Yep.
it gives you a nice sort of warm fuzzy feeling. And I
Right.
think it's probably the same sort of idea here.
Yeah. Well, see, okay, so the thing with AA is they 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 preach a victimhood status, in my opinion. I have a problem with AA in a lot of reasons, and one of them is they teach a victimhood mindset. They say you're not in control. There's nothing you can do to control your actions because you have a sickness. So, you just lean on that crutch now and try not to pick up a drink. That to me seems very counterproductive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't actually drink. I've got quite a lot of health problems, so it's better if I just don't. But I can. When I was younger, I could definitely see how easy it was to sort of slip into sort of drinking all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and I know plenty of people who have, have kind of gone down that path, and have nearly sort of gone to the brink. So, I mean, I don't think we've got an equivalent to AA over here. Not a religious
Right.
affiliated service, anyway.
Well,
Um,
in the American AA, they teach you basically, well, alcoholism is a disease, and there's nothing you can do yourself to actually fix it. So you need to rely on a higher power instead of yourself, because yourself is what got you into this. That really just teaches people that that they can't be trusted with themselves, and that doesn't lead to a very good recovery process, in my opinion. I haven't drank since I was like probably 22 years old, in excess, I mean. uh I used to go on
yeah,
drinking binges all the time when I was like 21, 22. But I don't drink anymore, but I still look at the AA thing as like, and I see my friends going, well, I'm powerless in my addiction, I can't do anything, I have to rely on God. And I said, well, that's just fucked up. That's fucked up that that's what they teach you.
to be honest with you, my only knowledge of AA comes from I think is it in Breaking Bad? One of the guys has to go to AA because he's got a drug problem, I think, or some equivalent anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think in SJWs and whatnot, their higher power is this
Yeah.
unattainable goal of equality. Just these abstract concepts that they can they can use any logical fallacy or anything, and just they can just excuse it. It doesn't matter what you say. You say, "Oh, that's internalized depression. Oh, that's
Yeah.
this, or that's that." There's always an excuse. There's no reasoning to it whatsoever. And even if, like, I don't know if you saw the Vice article recently. Somebody had written, it was Bish, I think his name was. He did an article, and he spoke about Sargon of Akkad and Paul Joseph Watson, and also Irate Bear, which was slightly strange because Irate Bear's got a pretty small channel in comparison
Yeah.
to Sargon and Paul Joseph Watson. Not to say his material isn't any good. Obviously, it is.
Right.
I'm good friends. I'm good friends with him, but it just seemed a bit strange that he was picking on someone who's not even got 2,000 subs.
Right. Yeah.
But he basically was saying how, that people like myself and Irate Bear and Sargon and all these kind of content creators are just distilling everything down to the definition of words. Well, no, you need to define what your terms are before you can make a cogent and coherent argument.
Right.
But use these nebulous terms to describe things, to explain things, it becomes completely meaningless. It's just word salad. It's just absolute nonsense.
Yeah. And then
so unless you actually get them to define their terms, then you can't have a discussion with them.
Yeah, you're fighting a battle between dimensions without even having a peek into the other dimension. And it's a problem.
Well, yeah, because I mean, the layman will think of racism as what racism is.
Yeah.
And then they turn and say, well, no, actually, racism means this. As well, we've been arguing for the past half an hour, and you didn't define your terms.
Right.
So we just assumed. So it's not productive at all until you actually get definitions. So that it also means that you've got a fallback as well. Because if they say, "Oh, well, I didn't mean that," he says, "Well, you stated at the beginning that this was your definition of this word. You can't now say, well, actually, no, I've changed it."
Yeah, and it's the same thing with like the rape culture idea. Sexual harassment falls into rape culture. Well, then why the fuck is it called rape culture? Do you consider that rape?
Yeah, why not sexual assault culture? I mean,
right.
which I don't think is accurate either.
Yeah, there's no There is no normalization of sexual assault. There's no normalization of rape. When people are accused of rape, their careers are ruined. When people are accused of sexual assault, most of the time their careers are ruined. But that didn't happen with Trump, because he didn't even say that it was sexual assault. He said they let me.
Well, yeah, I mean that was, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's one of these things that part of me was thinking, well, I wonder if this is going to be sort of the end of Trump. But I think because of the climate that had been, because there were a lot of people, Hillary supporters, saying, "Oh well, so much for all these men getting their lives ruined by these accusations. It hasn't affected Trump." Well, it's because of the climate that you have made that actually worked in his favour.
Yeah, yeah,
Because everybody was sort of going, well, wait a minute, the media is saying this. They've been lying to us about everything that he said so far. So why should we believe this? It's just bullshit. They're just like, he's not being given a fair run.
yeah, yeah.
So, and we know for a fact how corrupt Hillary is. So we're going to vote the other way because we're just tired of this. That's what it seems like to me. I'm sure there's more nuances in that to it as well, but
Yeah,
that was one of the things that stood out to me.
yeah. I am the King 48 said in chat. There's a real rape culture in the West. When men get raped by women, it's laughed at. That's very true. That's very
Yeah,
true. I have personal experience with that.
well, yeah. In the UK, it's not possible for a man to be raped by a woman.
Right. It's only forced penetration, not forced to penetrate.
Yeah, there's it's just sexual assault if a woman rapes a man, unless it's with an object or something.
Yeah.
And that's something. There was a petition going around to get this changed, and I think that the government petitions they all last 6 months, regardless of how many signatures they get.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I signed it after it had been up for about 3 months, and it only had maybe 3,000 signatures or something, and it needs to get 100,000 before it's considered for a debate in Parliament. So
isn't that fucked though?
It's quite depressing, really.
Yeah, it's fucked. It's that's not equality. And when when the mainstream media says we're all about equality, and then you try and start a petition that actually introduces equality, and nobody fucking does anything about it, that's fucked.
Well, yeah, because it's only the equality on one side. I think it's either just willful ignorance of the subject. They just say they just ignore it, just stick their fingers in their ears, or it's genuinely a kind of, well, we've got it bad in all these ways, so they've got it all bad in these ways, but we've got it worse in more ways than they do, so we need to address that balance. So if we addressed the men's issues, that would give them sort of more, that would give them less things that, less problems, fewer problems. Whereas, yeah, it's I don't know if you saw a video. I don't know if you've seen any videos by Oozaloo at all.
I'm not sure.
He did a good video the other day. It's kind of, it wasn't sort of a completely amazingly well researched video or anything. It was just kind of a nice sort of starting point, a talking point.
Right.
Where he was comparing what the goals of feminism are, and what the goals of men's rights movement is. And and he said, well, let's just see how many issues each of are actually looking at.
Yeah.
And the men's rights issues, there was about 4 times as long as the feminism one, because feminism in the West anyway has done all it's set out to achieve, and so they've just sort of tacked extra things on, or just ignore the fact that the wage gap is nonsense in the way that they peddle it, because it's an earnings gap, not a wage gap. And they've just kind of gone. And the thing that really annoys me though is when they say, "Oh, feminism's for men as well."
Yeah, yeah.
In what way?
It
In what way
yeah,
can you tell me that? Oh well, if women are all in a better position, then men automatically will be.
yeah.
That doesn't work. That
Nope.
just makes no sense whatsoever. They can't explain how. They'll just say, well, if women are are better off, but they're already better off.
Yeah,
That's the thing. But they just can't see it because they've been indoctrinated with the thing that women used to be oppressed, but they don't put it across like that. They just say, well, historically, women have been oppressed
yeah,
and are expected to do certain things.
yeah. And
When,
but they're really not anymore.
yeah, exactly, and it's the fact that they're trying to get other women who are quite happy to do traditionally female roles, child rearing and working in retail or working in care.
Yeah,
They're quite happy to do that. But then the feminists come and go, no, that's wrong. You can't do that. You need to aim higher. You need to better yourself. It's like, well, the whole point was the choice. You were given the choice
yeah.
on what they can and can't do. It just seems really hypocritical to me.
I mean, and okay, so the fact that uh people are going to be interested in different things. Biologically, women have different hormones than men do. They're going to be interested in different things. Now, of course, there's going to be the woman who is interested in doing the man things that are traditionally man centered, like STEM fields. There, you are going to have women who want to get into the STEM fields, but for now, at least, because of the way our biology is, they the, most women are not interested in getting into that STEM field. But if they do, they have every avenue to be able to, because there's tons of mandates and tons of what's the word I'm looking for? Reasons, publicity reasons to actually hire women. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, they're sort of being actively
Yeah,
encouraged,
exactly. Yeah,
and that's fine. I'm not bothered about encouraging people, women to join politics, get involved in that in politics, become politicians, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Encouraging's fine. I'm even okay with initiatives and paying advertisers or something to try
hmm
and encourage women. But if they don't want to do it, leave them be. There's none of this. Oh, because sorry, I'm going to have another little bit of a rant, but the SNP, the Scottish National Party,
hmm
who are in government at the minute in Scotland, they had a part of their manifesto to have 50% males and females in Parliament, in the Scottish Parliament, and in boardrooms. And
Jeez.
thankfully, I saw this on the SNP Facebook page. So, but thankfully, most of the comments were, "This is a waste of time.
Yeah.
You'd be better doing, productive with your time and the taxpayers' money." And most people were saying things like, "Well, that's fine. Okay, happy with that. Let's do that, but only if there's rules to make 50% of nurses male, 50% of sewage workers female. It
Yeah.
has to be applied consistently across the board. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. It's just a waste of time. It's just and it shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah. Well, no, and so something like that, like I saw somewhere else where like, oh, some countries making it so that 50% of or trying to make it so that 50% of their Congress or whatever is women, and 50% of a cabinet is women. Um, and that totally overlooks the if there are more qualified males. Um, no one is stopping women from getting into these. No one's stopping women from getting into these fields. No one's stopping women from trying to run for president or do this or do that. It's based on merit. That's where it's always been.
Yeah, and so it should be. Because I mean, a few women were commenting on this this thing on the SNP Facebook, just saying, well, that would make me feel undervalued. If I was being hired based on my vagina rather than my abilities,
Exactly. Yeah.
then I don't want the fucking job.
Right. Exactly. That's the way I'd look at it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure plenty of people would think, oh, great, easy pass. I can just work my way up to the top on the
Right.
basis of being female.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I'm sure plenty of people would just say, no, not going to bother. I'm going to have to stop here and say, Irate Bear, you do have a deep, sexy voice. There we go.
No one beats my sexy voice, Irate Bear. Go fuck yourself. No.
no, except Undoomed.
Yeah, okay. Undoomed has me beat. That's true. That's
yeah.
Yeah, so I think Adrian Bloom is saying that Canada was the 50-50 one that I was just talking about.
Oh, yeah, Parliament, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's something they've actually implemented because I haven't really looked into it, but I know it was something they were at least considering, which is
the Parliament, as far as I'm aware, is 50-50. And remember, that's where the famous quote, "What's your reasoning for this, Justin Trudeau?" Well, it's 2015.
Yeah, it's the current year.
The current year meme came from.
It's a great argument. You can't fight it. It's a great argument.
Yeah, it's just so nonsensical. You can't. You just get stumped by it. Really, someone says, "Well, it's 2016." Yes, it is. I've got a calendar too.
Yeah, you're right. I can't argue that. You're right.
Yeah. Fuck logic.
So Irate Bear, just spread them. I'm ready. No. So yeah, it's fucking insane. So this is why we have to say something. This is why these channels like ours have to exist. Is because these things are actually permeating our government. These things are actually getting through and actually changing the way we have to live our lives, and it's fucked.
I absolutely agree with that. And a lot of people are quite complacent about it as well.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people I know, and I'll be talking about these things with them, and they just, if they're not interested in that subject or they don't know about it,
yeah. The one thing
The
one thing I hate hearing is, "Oh, it'll work itself out," or "I don't really care about politics." Well, you don't, because
yeah,
it's your life.
The thing that I mostly get though is people saying, "Oh, it's not really that big a deal," or they just think, you know, you're coming across as a bit of an arsehole, you know, because I'll be saying things like, "Oh, you know, there's these feminists going about,"
yeah,
you know, and have a rant about it, and because they're not seeing it and they're not aware of it, they just think, "Oh, you're just overreacting."
Yeah.
So it was like back in the day, I didn't have a channel. I've only had a channel for a couple of months. But before that, I would usually go on. You know, I'd be watching Richard Dawkins videos and Christopher Hitchens, and you know, Thunderfoot back in the day when he was doing stuff about creationists.
Right.
And in the comment sections and have, kind of try and debate some of the Christians and the creationists. And you know, there's people now that say to me, "Oh, you know, why do you bother? It's not hurting anybody. These beliefs and all these kind of things." But now the reason that I've got the channel is so that if someone is sort of on the fence in these ideas, if they think, "Well, actually, I'm for equality. Yeah, definitely. That sounds really good." They get sucked in that way, or they could see people saying, "Well, actually, it's just a facade. The equality thing is a misnomer. It doesn't really define what it is they're actually trying to do."
Right.
So I hopefully managed to sway some people's opinions. But if they're not aware of everything that's going on, you can come across as being a bit of a dick.
Oh yeah.
I suppose that's the thing, because I've said to, you know, saying, "Oh, I don't ascribe to feminist ideology or whatever," and they go, "You're not a feminist? Oh, it means you hate women then?"
Yeah.
Well, no. And this is from people who who, you know, they're not politically active. They just hear the word feminism and go, oh, that's a good thing, because in its general sense, it kind of is when it's needed.
Yeah.
But now it's not. So it's trying to explain that to people who don't really want to listen, and the people that are saying, oh, you know, it doesn't really have any effect. Well, I'm seeing it, as you say, permeate politics and society, and it's being weaponized as a tool by the establishment as well, because they're going, oh, there's a new fad where people are being total idiots, and it means that we can allowing us to take control over certain things. And they're so naive they don't see that. And trying to explain it to people without sounding like a total knob is quite a difficult thing.
Yeah. Well, it was like when I first started my channel, I was talking to one of my friends and he's like, you know, I heard you talking in there, but there's no one home. What are you doing? And I said, well, you know, I have a channel. He goes, oh, what's your YouTube channel about? And I said, well, you know, right now it's mainly focused on speaking against feminism, third wave feminism. And he goes, what? You're hating on women? And I'm like, no, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, I usually I don't really tell people about my channel because, well, I want to. I probably shouldn't be saying this on a live stream, but I don't want to be doxxed or anything like that.
Right.
Not that I'm because I'm in some kind of position that would get me sacked or anything like that. I just want. Well,
Your
one thing I don't want. I don't want my friends and family seeing it. I don't want the SJWs to say, "Oh well, there you go," you know, just another, you know, blah 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 man with, you know, white skin and this, that, and the next thing. That's not so important. Yeah, I don't want people just to be able to instantly go, oh, that's that guy.
Yeah.
I can find out where he works and all this kind of stuff. I mean, if they do, all I would say to my places that I work that, you know, I tried to keep myself anonymous.
Right.
It doesn't. There's no connection between me and my employers while I'm anonymous. So it's only when I get if I was to get doxxed, or I did something stupid like tell everybody my name, which I nearly did on a stream last night.
Oh, geez.
Well, I know I nearly said what a previous job was. Yeah, if I was to get doxxed, I was like, well, between me and my employer, but there wasn't one beforehand. So I would like to think that I wouldn't sort of lose any jobs over it, but it does seem to be that if you fight against this kind of stuff, people just assume you're lots of different things, you know.
Horrible person.
You're basically a horrible person, and you don't understand. But it's because it's a minority position. I think the majority of people are either indifferent. I think the majority of people are indifferent, or they're for the perceived equality because they don't really know. They haven't looked too much into it. They just sort of look on the surface. Oh yeah, equality. Yeah, it sounds great.
Right.
Hard into it, and then there's sort of us at the bottom of the pile. The smallest group, I think.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, you know, I'm not worried about if I get doxxed, I'm not worried about losing a job because, you know, this is actually what I'm trying to do for a living, is, you know, talk about all this stuff and get some more content out there. So I'm not worried about that. But one of the things that I am worried about is like my family in particular. I don't want my family to be bothered by, you know, people who just don't like what I have to say, or I don't want my roommate to be bothered by that stuff. That's my biggest concern.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm kind of just me. I'm just sort of by myself, so I don't really have that issue. And I think if I was to get doxxed and I lost my job and stuff, I'd probably put more time into this and try and make a job out of it. I'd probably just ride the wave of publicity that came about from it.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to use these things to your advantage.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I've been doing a lot of live streams recently. I usually do videos and then put them out, but recently I've been doing a lot of live streams just because I really like the back and forth dialogue. I like being able to say what I want to say and right then and there, being open and having it live. But the videos, when I do the videos, I go into a lot more detail. I like bring up statistics, I bring up articles, stuff like that. And that's a lot more helpful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is only the third live stream I've been in. The other two were on Irate Bear's channel, so I
Yeah.
got to listen to that sweet, sexy voice for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Um, most of my content, it's more sort of opinion on social issues.
Yeah.
Part of that is because I'm lazy and I don't want to do too much research. Um, that's part of it, but most of the things that I go for, I respond to. They don't have citations or anything anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So so it's that kind of what can be that which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. It's that kind of
Right.
thing. I'm not
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
go. I'm not going to put loads and loads of effort in to debunk someone who had a kind of throwaway remark about
Right. Right.
about sexual assault or something like that. I
But
think I probably will put more effort in.
you know, you know who Teal Deer is?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Teal Deer?
yeah. I know Teal Deer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's the type who'll do something like that. He'll make a 45-minute video about a 3-minute video.
I think someone has to.
Definitely,
But
definitely.
it's while his videos may be, well, they are pretty dry.
Yeah.
And it's quite a lot of the time it is just him droning on for 13 minutes, and then
Yeah.
there'll be a little clip of the thing he's responding to. Then another 13 minutes of him droning on, reading from academic papers.
Yeah.
I know it's not the most entertaining thing ever,
Yeah.
obviously, uh, but
But
yeah,
it's
it's
needed.
good to know that it is neat. It's a necessary thing
Yeah.
because a lot of people. Well, I think quite a lot of people do a bit of research, but obviously he is the opposite extreme. He's like properly into it, and I'm glad that he does it though, because there's been a few times where I've said to people, "You need to watch this video," and their only comeback is usually, "Oh well, that was really boring." I don't know if you saw.
They didn't
I don't
watch
know if
all
you
of it.
saw every.
Yeah.
No, no, they didn't. No, I don't know if you've ever seen any of Kevin Logan's stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he did a video on Teal Deer and his Descent of the Manosphere series,
Yeah.
basically saying how boring Teal Deer was. Never addressed any of his arguments or anything like that. Didn't counter anything. And to me, that just bolsters the way that I'm thinking. I'm like, well, you don't have any content. You just
Yeah.
there's no content to your argument whatsoever. There's no argument.
Right.
You're just I just ad homs.
You're just like, here's an opinion. Oh, all of a sudden I think it's fact.
So yeah, it's just like, well, look, this guy's really boring, or this guy's got,
Yeah.
this person here has got this or has got that. It's like, right, well, it's like Goodfellas videos. He's just another Scottish guy. He did a 20-minute video on just dumb arguments. People were calling him a racist. It's like, right, okay, if I'm a racist, that's fine. What does that have to do with my argument?
Right.
It doesn't dismiss the argument.
Right.
Because if somebody else said they like that argument and they weren't a racist, it's still just as valid an argument, or invalid, depending on.
Just poisoning the well. The more you make people feel like your opponent's the evil person, the less valid their opinion is. It's fucked, but it's the way our brains work.
Yeah, I know, and I think that's what that. Irate Bear missed this earlier when I was talking about the Vice article that he was featured in. The guy was just saying, these people are just to their dictionary definitions, and that's not useful.
Right.
Well, no, it is. It's very useful.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not going to be able to have a constructive dialogue without doing so.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's to me. I find that if you have conversations and you don't have an actual ground that you're starting on, like, okay, this is what we need to, that we're going to work on this and this and this definition, not on what's being said over here. Is it actually rape? Is it actually sexual assault? Or is it just being conflated with rape and sexual assault? Things like that.
Yeah, the other thing that they tend to do is say, well, you're not taking sort of nuances into account, but they are the least nuanced people,
right?
that you could ever come across, because they say, well, all white men are this.
Good night, Irate Bear. If you're actually leaving.
Yeah, good night, Irate Bear. Sleep well. Yeah, I mean, you can't get any less nuance than tarring everybody with the same skin color one way.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense to me. And the fact that they can't see that just frustrates me no end.
Yeah, I just well, okay, so let's go back to what we were talking about. Jordan Peterson had mentioned as well about the lack of religion in Western society being kind of the cause for this SJW rise up. Now, the thing is that there does seem to be something. I don't know if you know this. I'm a psychology buff. I went to college for psychology for a while. And one of the things that I've learned pretty easily is that people kind of have to have some kind of faith or belief system in something, in some way. And when you have that kind of faith, somehow your critical thinking gets turned off. In most cases, your critical thinking gets turned off, and any ideas that kind of oppose that, you will refuse to actually even entertain. And without entertaining an idea, you can't actually see what the reasoning is behind that idea. You know what I'm saying?
It's an emotional crutch, isn't it?
It is. It is. And so, me, I, even with religion, I myself, I am a Christian, but even with religion, I look at everything and I go, well, I don't believe in magic. I don't believe in the supernatural. I'm one of those people that believe fully that if God is real, then he exists through the restraints of science. You understand what I'm saying?
So is that's not deism then, is it?
No, not really. No.
So you're saying that you think God exists, but is still subject to the laws of the universe. Is that right?
Exactly. Yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So, I don't believe in magic. I don't believe in supernatural things happening. I believe that everything has a scientific reason and a scientific explanation. So with that kind of growing up with that idea, even my own religion, I'm constantly critically looking at and constantly questioning. So I've never had that thing where I just stick to an idea set and argue and argue and argue. I'll sit there and argue or debate with an atheist or a Satanist even, and take what they're saying into account and go, that actually, I can see where you think this. I could see where you think that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, there's a definite lack of critical thought, especially if it is something that's emotionally charged.
Definitely, yeah.
And it's I hesitate to say this, but a lot of it is laziness, in the sense that it feels good. So it feels good to them to have this belief. So why bother? Why bother sort of confront it?
Because if you don't confront that, so the religion is the first thing, and if you use religion as this pit of, well, I'm not going to question any of this, well, then it's so easy to pick up the next thing and go, well, I'm not going to question this either, and I'm not going to question this, and I'm not going to question this, and then you just become a robot, and it's fun.
Yeah, you have to wonder if it's some kind of evolutionary trait, the protective mechanism.
Yeah.
It helps you. It helps us as a species, as animals, to recognize the in and the out groups.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
You know, it's a completely sort of tribalistic mindset that I'm not even aware they have. Because it's like that thing, you know, it says, well, your religion is usually just a product of where you're born.
Right. Yeah.
At least you're likely to be Muslim. If you're born in the West, you're more likely to be Christian.
Right.
You know, it's just what happens, and then, you know, you just kind of grow up with it. You don't sort of think about it. Well, obviously some people do.
I did.
Yeah, I mean, there's this. I don't really have an issue with people believing in things that are irrational per se.
Hey, just so you know, you don't have to tiptoe around what you're saying with me. I don't get offended. So.
Oh, don't. I'm not.
Okay, good. Because it seemed like you were. And I'm like, no, dude, it's fine.
Told your belief irrational, so there.
You're like, I'm still good.
Yeah. So it's. I think. I mean, even irrationality, obviously, to one person, what I'm saying is will probably be quite irrational.
Right.
But I don't sort of call people up on things all the time, because I think you're a bit of a dick if you do that all the time. But
yeah, you have to choose your battles.
Exactly, yeah. And because if a religious person comes to my door, I will engage with them, because, you know, they've basically they've come round in an attempt to try and change my mind on something.
Yeah, and start a dialogue.
Exactly, yeah. Whether it's wanted or not, and they probably haven't spoken to anybody, because most people either just don't answer the door or just fuck off.
Yeah.
So when they come to the door to me, I think, right, okay, well, let's see what they've got. But the danger is, change your mind, then a lot of the time there's no point in engaging with anyone on that issue.
When I
usually I was just going to say, usually if I'm about to engage into some sort of debate or discussion with somebody, I'll say, are you open to changing your mind?
Right.
And if they say no,
then you don't.
They don't often do say no.
Right.
But sometimes they do say no. I'm like, thank you for your honesty, but then there's no point.
Right. Exactly.
You know, but if someone says, yeah, you know, I'm open to ideas, then fair play, anything goes.
Right. Now, you know, it's just so being a Christian in the weirdest sense of the word, it's, to me, if you can't question your own ideas, if you can't even question that the brown object that you're looking at is really brown, then you really have no place being able to have an argument with anybody and try and actually get a mind changed, because you have to criticize everything. If you don't criticize everything, you're just another robot. Seriously.
Yeah. You've got to critically analyze a lot of things. I mean, there's a comedian that I really like, an English guy called Bill Bailey. He's a really good comedian. Unfortunately, I found out recently that he supports various feminist outfits, but I don't know to what extent. I'm hoping that he's well intentioned, but maybe slightly misinformed. I don't know. But he says a lot of things about religion and things. Not solely. He's not like Bill Hicks or anything where he rants about religion for half an hour. But it is part of his show sometimes. But one of the things that he said, and it's stuck with me, it was I think he was talking about Stephen Hawking.
Yeah.
And how basically if someone that he knows and trusts says something, he'll probably just take it as is, so if Stephen Hawking says something, he's like, that's probably going to be true because because of his sort of status as a scientist.
Right.
I'm an empiricist, but I'm a relaxed empiricist.
Mm-hmm.
If my mate down the pub says, this is true, he goes, oh yeah, I could believe that. So that's kind of what I describe myself as a relaxed empiricist
Mm-hmm.
until it comes to an issue that I know nothing about really. The whole thing about feminism and SJWs and all that I found that after getting really bored of arguing with creationists and whatnot.
Right. Yeah.
So suddenly I had a couple of other videos, and it was one of Sargon's videos, I think, and I just clicked on it and I thought,
Yeah.
wow, this guy's a dick. He's saying all these things.
Yeah.
No idea. So I sat and watched loads of his videos, and then Teal Deer, and then everybody else. And I thought, well, actually, there is more to this. But again, I did watch videos of people on the other side as well.
Yeah.
And you just sort of have to weigh up which one stands up to scrutiny.
Exactly.
You try and remove your kind of
Your own
emotional
personal
instincts.
Yeah. Your own. See, that's what I.
Bias.
That's what I do. I'll sit there and I'll watch a feminist video or I'll watch an SJW video and I'll go clear my mind here. Let's look at it from their point of view. Let's take on their idea for a little bit, take on their belief for a little bit, and see if it stands up to my own scrutiny. And if it doesn't, then it needs to be criticized.
Yeah, and you do have to. Quite a lot of the time, even with religion, myself. Well, actually, am I right? Because this one thing this person said actually made sense in terms of religion, or the existence of God.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of makes sense, and I do it with feminism as well, because I keep seeing people obviously peddling the wage gap and
Right, yeah,
and what have you, and I think there must be something to this. Then have I just gone down the wrong path? Am I fully entrenched in the other side that I will just automatically go against anything that a feminist says?
yeah,
It's really easy to get kind of sucked in, and there's been a few things that people have said, such as Sargon said something, and I've thought, well, yeah, that's probably true, and then I've spoken to somebody else about it, and then they've said something that counters it, and I go, well, actually, no, that makes sense as well.
yeah.
So then you have to sort of weigh up the pros and cons and do a bit more digging.
That brings me into something else, like with politicians. A lot of people get so upset, oh, this politician's flip-flopping. Well, if they're not flip-flopping, do you really want them as a politician? If their ideas aren't constantly changing, if they're not fluid, if they're not getting some kind of, if they're not taking input from others, then there's something wrong.
Well, I would agree with that entirely. Because when people were bringing up the issue that about Hillary being a big flip-flop,
yeah,
I understood what they were getting at. They were just like, well, she was only saying what was popular at the time to get elected. Whereas over here, I don't know if you've heard of Jeremy Corbyn over in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
He's he's a very left-leaning guy, but the other side of the political spectrum,
right?
And yeah, he's well, except that yeah, he's not gonna get elected to this. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
But basically the mainstream media, they absolutely hate him. The establishment hate him, and they pick up on everything. Oh well, in 1983 he had this stance on this thing, and now he doesn't. Oh, like he's such a flip flop.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a long time, and the fact that he's been reevaluating his opinions and his thoughts and his stances on things, I would say was a positive thing. If you're adamantly and if you're just intransigent and not wanting to change your mind in the face of any sort of change or new evidence that comes to light, then yeah, I don't want to vote for that person.
Right, yeah. And yes, Seto 749 said constantly changing maybe a bit much. And yeah, that's true. I mean, you've also got to be firm in your own ideals sometimes. You know, once you've made an opinion,
Yeah.
you've got to be like, well, I'm either going to stand behind it or I'm not going to tout it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I think it depends on the issue. You know,
Yeah.
if it's something that is, you know, that is demonstrably false, and you once said that you know, were in favour of it, but actually it's not even a real thing,
Right.
and you don't change, you don't hold your hands up and say, well, okay, I was wrong on that.
Right.
Then that's not a good position to take. Whereas if it's something that is just opinion,
Yeah.
and as a principle or something like that, then
Right.
yeah, that's fair enough.
Definitely. Yeah, that was Sargon said he quoted somebody, I don't know who he quoted, but he said um the mark of an intelligent mind is to be able to entertain an idea without accepting it. Um and that's kind of one of the philosophies I basically live by is I'm open to anything. You tell me something and I'll listen. And I will argue based off of the things that I know. But if you teach me something, then I have to take the responsibility. If I'm actually engaging in a dialogue and a debate, I have to take the responsibility and give you the charity of actually accepting or and entertaining your idea and mulling it over instead of just saying no, you believe this and fuck you, go away, you're this, you're that, you're a misogynist, you're a racist. Yeah, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, if someone has to resort to name calling,
It's
especially when they're inaccurate labels,
right.
then I'll tend to just kind of dismiss them. There's no point in engaging with them
Right, yeah.
on any real kind of level.
Right.
And the thing that really annoys me about that, though, is that if you do say anything to them and they keep going, racist, misogynist,
Mm-hmm.
they become more and more entrenched in their own ideology. They
Yeah.
convince themselves. You know, it's just this cycle, just repetition of I am right, I am right, I am right. So anybody that tries to sort of chip away at that,
Mm-hmm.
they're in the out group, so they just get shunned and you know, and just get called every name under the sun. It'd be really interesting to give some of these, like the book that I was reading, for example, to give that chapter to some of the people that I know that are quite big into feminism and social justice. It'd be
Mm-hmm.
quite good just to see if they would read it and go, "Oh, wait a minute,
Right. Yeah.
that's me in this issue," but I doubt they would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would like to think so. So I think basically what we've agreed on here is that it should be me and you and Sargon and our ilk running the place. That's it.
Yeah. 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 We should be the ones making the rules. Uh,
Yeah.
what gets me about the arguing with an SJW is, um, they only put out their talking points, and while I'm sitting there trying to put myself in their shoes, while I'm sitting there trying to actually understand what it feels like to be them, I get I they don't understand anything that I'm saying. Anything I say is it's either racist or misogynist or something of that nature. And I'm like, well, listen, you know, the things that you're saying are highly racist. All white men don't even deserve an opinion, I was told at work one day. Uh well, what the fuck?
Yeah. I think they just see red, don't they? And they
Yeah, yeah.
just spout vitriol at you.
Yeah, well, it kind of
It's
goes back to what Jordan Peterson was saying about them, is that they get this compassion. According to studies, we found that progressive liberals are high in compassion. They're very high in compassion, and they take on these ideas and they treat them like children, like mothers with children. And you know that visceral kind of just primal rage you get when somebody. Do you have children?
no, I don't
Okay. Well,
know.
my mom and my dad and pretty much any parent that I've discussed this with, when you go after their children, there's this instinctual kind of primal rage against that person. Like, even if it's kind of unwarranted, there's just this overreaction, like, get the fuck away from my children or I will murder you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean,
it's
that's
that
happened to me a few times, you know.
Yeah. So it's that same kind of visceral primal rage that they're exhibiting, and it seems to be coming from the exact same place in the brain, the exact same feeling structure. So it's just it's very hard to argue with someone when they literally feel like you are trying to damage them, and that's the shitty part.
Yeah, because they're so emotionally invested in it, it feels like a personal attack.
Yeah.
So it's like
exactly it.
I am attacking an idea that you've got, a faulty idea that you've got.
Mm-hmm.
You are attacking my character and all who think like me.
Right. Yeah.
And therefore, you need to be purged off the earth, kind of thing.
Yep. Exactly. Psychologically, it makes sense. That's why when I actually if I bring somebody who's from that other ilk on, face to face, when I'm talking to them, I try and be reasonable. I try and say, hey, you know, this is the way I see it. How do you see it? But so I was able to do that with Tim Blake when he came on, Demotivator Opinion. I was able to actually have a conversation with him without him getting really ridiculous about it. That's probably just because he's a white knight looking for sex and not actually believing the ideas. I'm kidding. But
no, he's from New Zealand. He's from New Zealand. They shag sheep.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
So, you know, and so I like to do that, but I get in these conversations with SJWs in real life, and it's just, I try to do that same thing where I'm like, yeah, you know, let's talk, and I immediately get called names. And I immediately get told that, well, you're just racist, or you just don't understand it because you're white. First off, I'm not white, really. I'm really not. I've got a ton of Native American in my blood, and the other part's mostly Irish. So I'm not exactly, the British white man.
Well, that's definitely me, though. Unfortunately, I'm definitely from white stock.
Yeah.
Shitty festival, doesn't it? White stock.
And I love how, oh, well, you're homophobic. Really? Why don't you tell that to my last boyfriend?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, you're misogynistic.
Right. Yep. Tell that to my last girlfriend.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's because they just make assumptions about you, which is exactly what the thing that they're trying to fight against. It's that inconsistency. They just
blows your mind.
Makes me despair.
Just goodbye, mind.
Yeah. I know it's. Sorry, you go.
It's like arguing with someone. Okay, being a Christian, I have argued with people who have said, "Oh, there's there's angels. I see them all the time," and I'm like, "No, you don't fucking see angels all the time. You have a problem." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean,
but you're arguing against a reality that's just completely not real.
Yeah, I mean, there does become a point where you think that, at what point does it become mental illness?
Right, exactly.
And I'm not meaning that in a flippant way.
Right.
I mean that quite seriously.
Yeah.
People can dive so deep into these causes that they see as being righteous, and just protect themselves against any kind of criticism from that, any kind of opposing view. That they're just not really functioning human beings anymore.
Right, exactly.
You do see that, and part of me is wondering if that's kind of seeping into politics as well, because there's a few MPs over here, members of Parliament over here in the UK, that they've just got this one-track mind about social justice and the like, and you just think, you're seeing things where there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Everything, it's that again. I know it's a cliche and everything, but saying everything is sexist, everything is racist.
Okay, it is the
whatsoever.
definition of paranoid delusions. It is the.
Well, you'll know this better than me.
It is the medical definition of paranoid delusions, where these people are going, oh, the white men are out to get me, the men are out to get me, we're all being held down. It's tinfoil hat material. It's delusional. And there's some kind of ego in it. There's some kind of narcissistic ego in it, where these people are like,
oh, absolutely, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely narcissism. It's a breeding ground for the Dunning-Kruger effect as well.
Yeah.
I am right, and I am morally superior. I'm righteous, and because I'm woke. Because I'm privy to this information. Yeah, I am privy to this information that you lay people are not. Therefore, I'm untouchable.
Yeah.
And I never really used Twitter before I started doing this kind of thing as well. But that is just a vapid breeding ground of just utter lunacy. From everybody, I think. I don't think there was. I had a little conversation with the one janitor recently on Twitter, and he did. I did say to him, "Thank you for having a civil discussion with me," and he said, "Yes, thank you as well." He says, "I don't think I've ever had one before." So,
yeah,
because that's kind of the more of the approach that I take. If someone just starts spouting insults and things, there's no point. There's no point. It's easy to get sucked into these things, but at the end of the day, it's a waste of time. And you've got to focus. I think it's sort of like the religion thing. You kind of want to try and convince people who are on the fence, and just or who haven't sort of gone full retard, as it were.
Right.
It's those people you want to be kind of aiming for. But
exactly.
Obviously, it's hard to tell on Twitter who's who.
Right.
And everybody just seems to be nuts.
Yeah, and you only have 140 characters to express your entire idea, so it can definitely seem a bit extreme on Twitter. I will say that.
As I say, I never really used Twitter before, and it's been quite fun actually. I have enjoyed it, but it's only been 2 months, so ask me again in another 2 months if I still think it's fun.
Yeah, that's the thing. If it's fun, there are other things that I want to cover, things that I think deserve some deeper looks, like the problems that we have in American politics, the corruption that's been exposed over this election cycle hasn't really been discussed, but there is some very deep-seated corruption going on in the American political system right now, and it needs to be addressed.
Yeah, well, that was when, like I said way back at the beginning, when someone said to me, "Oh, if you had the option, who would you vote for, Trump or Hillary?" And I said, "Oh, reluctantly, Trump." One of the reasons that I said was because I don't think he's going to get much done over the next 4 years, in any sort of real term, anyway, terms. But the other thing is, I think voting for Trump has, especially the establishment, go, "Oh shit, we need to really, hopefully it'll lead to some kind of reforms in both parties."
Definitely, and I hope it does.
Absolutely, I hope so. But obviously, what I got was, "Oh, but he said some mean things about a woman. He said grab him by the pussy." It's like, well, if that's more important to you,
right,
then fine. But
but we're talking about long-lasting political corruption that could forever change the face of the free world. There's a big difference.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, they said things like, "Oh, yeah, well, I'm well aware that Hillary rigged the primaries and against Bernie and this, that, and the next thing, and she's really corrupt and she's getting paid by, human rights abusers and all this kind of thing. But Trump said some mean things.
I mean, I don't understand how I don't understand how a single feminist could get behind Hillary Clinton when she took money from Saudi Arabia, when she took money from Qatar. These are countries that are notorious for treating women like shit. Like, what the fuck is wrong with her?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's again, it's this kind of tribalism, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, I don't care what she actually does. I just care what she says. She's our leader. No, that is not how you were supposed to judge a leader. That is not why we have elections.
Yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, I had to try and I had to say to these people who were basically screaming in my face, how could you even blah 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 blah? And I was just like, can even vote in this. We're not from America, so
right.
Shut your fucking face. It doesn't matter. It's just an opinion. You have an opinion on it. I have an opinion on it. At the end of the day, what we think, they were sort of worrying that I was kind of leaning more to the right and all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Quite funny because the woman who was screaming in my face about how the way that Trump treats women, and that is the most important aspect of the whole thing to her. Mm-hmm. She was just this is before the election,
right, yeah.
So she says, "Oh, I just hope that one thing goes in our favor this year because we just had Brexit." And I was just sitting there, and I thought, "Is now a good time to say that I voted to leave?" I decided not to. I thought, "Oh, we're going to be here all night." So.
Yeah. So the thing that really gets me about what people say, well, you just take a certain side, you're just on this side, you're guilty of the same thing. Well, that's not true. I recently saw I think it was the 60 Minutes interview. I'm not sure. I think Ivanka was with him. And they asked Ivanka what she was going to do now that the campaign's over and she's done helping with that. And she said something about how she wanted to focus on women's issues. And one of the biggest issues she wanted to focus on was equal pay for women, which infuriated me.
Right. Right, okay. Well, just go and play with some plasticine or something. You're going to achieve about as much.
Right. So I'm sitting there and I'm going, oh, great. So Ivanka, the president's daughter, is an SJW. I'm going to have a lot of fun with this. And I can't wait because I'm going to criticize the shit out of her if she starts going on and on about wage gaps and shit. And I'm going to criticize the hell out of Obama or out of Trump if he starts trying to put in laws that try and make pay more equal.
Well, exactly. I mean, I don't know if you've watched Sargon's latest video, This Week in Stupid. I mean, he's already criticizing Trump for things.
Exactly.
But you supported Trump, though. You supported.
Oh yeah.
Well, yes, because I'm not partisan.
Exactly. I'm a free thinker. I'm not an ideologue.
Now is the time to hold Trump to account. Of all times, anybody gets in power. As soon as they get in power,
they should become the subject of criticism. Yes,
exactly. Any and all criticism, well, within reason, obviously. If it's something that is, definitely not proven to be true or anything,
right?
You've still got to be skeptical, and you've still got to call people out. I just hate this us and them mentality.
Yeah.
It's actually quite depressing sometimes, and that's one of the reasons I started making videos, which is basically so I could start shouting into my microphone about the things that piss me off, basically.
Yeah. Sorry, I just got a DM, so I'm taking a look at that. Somebody is.
No problem. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's just you know, if you're not being critical of the people in power, then there's no point of a democracy. There's no point in casting your vote. You know?
Oh, yeah, basically, yeah. People are always asking. I mean, I don't know about in the US, but it's a private ballot, so nobody's meant to know who you voted for, really,
Right. Yeah.
unless you willingly say so.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, people are always asking, "Who did you vote for?" I say, "Well, it's none of your business."
Right.
And when I first started voting, I would always ask my dad, "Who are you voting for?" But that's because I sort of respect his opinion.
Right. Yeah.
And then after a while, but he would always say, "Well, I'm not telling you."
Right.
so I'd have to try and kind of get out of him, just ask certain things. Well, what do you think about this thing and this policy, or what do you think about this?
I try to do
I've
that
got a
with
rough
my
idea.
roommate.
Yeah. But now I'm kind of the opposite. People ask me, "Who did you vote for? What way did you vote in the Scottish independence referendum? What way did you vote?" So it's none of your business. I don't ever put up flyers and stickers and all this kind of stuff. I don't see how that helps. I mean, I think the policies and the ideas should stand up on their own without any kind of advertising who it is that you're voting for, because you're just different. I know, again, it's a kind of a cliche, but when people were wearing T-shirts that said "I'm an atheist, debate me," that I didn't like that, but at the same time, I mean, basically just made people look like douchebags.
Right.
But I think if the only reason that I would ever put something up would be because I'm voting this way about why, that kind of thing. I'm open for that, but I don't really want to advertise it because it's a very unpopular opinion. Then, people will then, you just get targeted basically.
Yeah. So someone in the chat right now, I am the King 48, is talking about how Islam is a scary religion. And it really is. I used to live in Michigan, right around Dearborn. I don't know if you know anything about Dearborn, Michigan, but it's basically America's version of Mecca, I guess. It's it's where the highest population of American Muslims live. And they actually have in the mornings, I'd be woken up by the call to prayer being broadcasted really loud everywhere. And first off, it's hilarious to listen to. Like, what the? But anyway, I'm like, so I went to church with my family one day, and we were coming home from church, and there were a bunch of Muslims standing in the street. And they were standing in the middle of the street. They wouldn't move. And we were trying to drive down the street. And we're sitting there. We were just sitting there. We weren't honking. We weren't doing anything. We're thinking, okay, they're just getting out and they're fellowshipping. They'll be done. And they stayed there. And finally, my dad tooted his horn just a little bit. And next thing you know, they're like yelling and screaming. And they're mad. I'm like, holy crap. And they were just angry at us because we dared try to drive down that road. So,
well, hashtag not all, of course.
Right. Hashtag not all, but it's still just that, if that had happened, say at my church, the people would have moved out of the way. Like, who the fuck cares if you're fellowshipping? You shouldn't be doing it in the middle of the road.
Well, it's this sort of entitlement almost, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's the same here. Well, it's worse. It's worse than people standing on the road. Obviously, there was the Rotherham child grooming scandal. 1,500 kids.
Yep.
It was awful, but the police didn't want to do anything about it because they were more scared of being called racist, and there'd been riots and stuff like that.
Yep.
So that obviously just makes it even worse because they go, oh, we can get away with this. Great, well, we'll just keep doing it.
really hate that race is conflated with ideology in this case. This isn't the case of the Jews. You know, when you say Jew, you're not necessarily referring to someone who believes in the Jewish Bible. You're talking about an actual race of people. But when you say Muslim, you're not talking about people from the Middle East. You're talking about people who believe in the religion of Islam. And the religion of Islam itself, I don't know if you've ever read the Quran, but is strictly against the against living peacefully in a country like America. So that does have a problem. That really does. Again, being a Christian, I don't want religions to be outlawed in the United States, because you start with one and that's a precedent for every other one to go falling too.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Islam is not really a religion, in my opinion. It's more of like, you know how back when
Well, it's politicized.
It is. It's very political. It's very anti-Constitution. And to be an American citizen, you have to be in agreement with the Constitution in some way.
Well, yeah, I mean, we don't even have a constitution over here, so
right.
You know, I think you know, so in theory, if enough Muslims moved over here, set up a political party, then technically that would still be democracy,
right?
Which, I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm not quite donning the tinfoil hat just yet,
right?
But you know, in theory, that is what could happen over here. The thing that really gets me is that you're not allowed to criticize. It seems anyway, because every time I bring something up, they'll say, "Oh, you know, this thing happened, and it was." You know, and often the media don't even say, "Oh, and it was perpetrated by
a Muslim."
They just sort of skirt around it, and they don't explicitly say that.
Right.
It just gets really frustrating because it's like no one's addressing the elephant in the room.
Right. And that elephant needs to be addressed before it starts stomping on people.
Well, yeah, exactly, yeah. And because obviously in the EU at the minute we've got the whole migrant crisis and what have you, and there are so many campaigns at the moment to accept more and more refugees into the UK. And whenever I say I don't think that's a good idea, it's just like, well, you're racist then. You're racist. That's it.
Right.
End of story.
Right. Well, okay.
Well, no.
So we do need some. I fully believe that if we can safely, we should take in some refugees. There are Christians over there that are getting decapitated because they're Christians. There's people who are atheists over there that are getting decapitated and crucified because they're atheists. I mean, it's a very dangerous climate for anybody who's not Muslim and not that particular brand of Muslim. Very dangerous climate. And there needs to be some kind of reprieve granted to those people. But we have to be careful because our countries are at stake when we do this.
Yeah, I mean, I think what people seem to think is if you don't let more refugees in, then that means that you're in favour of them being bombed, right. You know, and killed
and all that other stuff. Yeah,
countries. Exactly. Yeah. Which no, again, it's saying you disagree with one thing doesn't mean you agree with the other. It doesn't.
Right. A whole country should not step in front of a bullet. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more open to the idea of taking more refugees, and I mean children. I don't mean the ones that seem to have been coming in, you know, and are actually 22 years old, that kind of thing.
Right.
But I do think that there needs to be something. Like I said, and when I say children, I mean sort of orphaned children.
Yeah.
Because then obviously they would be brought up within our society, with our values, ideals, and whatnot. Because we, as far as I'm aware, currently have no system. You know, people who are coming into the country actually have to learn about the country they're moving into, and so they all congregate in their own little areas, and then they become
Even
their own
with children,
little area.
even with children, you have to be careful. I had a few buddies who were in Iraq. They were in the Marine Corps. They went over to Iraq, and they did together between the two of them 3 tours. And the guy who did 2 tours was talking to me about a few moments. He was opening up to me, and he said that there was one moment where this child was walking up to him holding a cell phone, and he looked at the child who was holding the cell phone and was like, "You need to put the cell phone down." Was yelling at him in their language, Arabic. Was yelling, and you need to put that down. You need to put that down. And the kid wouldn't listen. Was just smiling, and he pressed a button, and his a bomb went off and blew up like four of his buddies. And then he shot the kid. He killed the kid. But it's because of that they take advantage of our compassion, and they use children to get done what needs to get done. So even with children, you have to be careful, you know?
Yeah, I guess I should have clarified young children, maybe under the age of 5 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's not impossible that they can be brainwashed and
right. Yeah.
indoctrinated, but they're more likely to be, salvageable.
Exactly. At that age, definitely. Yeah. It just comes to the point where our compassion might end up being our downfall. So we have to be careful about that.
Do you have any thoughts on what can be done rather than just accepting all these refugees in? This is something that I've seen people say, "Oh, I don't want all this mass migration, but I also, obviously feel bad for the people who are getting killed and everything."
Right.
So is there any kind of solution that you've heard of?
So do you remember when a bunch of Cubans started illegally coming to America on boats? And Florida had these camps set up for the illegal Cubans to live in while they got processed.
Vaguely, yeah.
So that's kind of the thing that America did when we had that problem with the Cubans. I could see that being something that might be, so if they blow anything up, they're just blowing up that camp. And while that would be awful, it saves, America or whoever took in the immigrants. But I think that would be the most reasonable way of looking at it. I've heard people talk about straight up camps, like internment camps. Well, that's where they'll live. I'm not sure about that. I find that to be very Hitler-like.
That's a bit demeaning, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. So if we could find a way to do it to protect ourselves, and while we are also protecting ourselves, that'd be great. But I don't think we should subject them to subhuman living conditions or treat them any differently than we would Americans, because that's what America is about. That's what the West is about, is our compassion and our forever moving toward being a better people and not being savages. But we have to be careful,
Yeah, I mean, in France, they had one of these camps, actually recently just got demolished. Quite what happened to all the inhabitants, I don't know, but they were camping in France near where they could make the passage across to the UK. A lot of them were saying, we already have family in the UK, but it wasn't dealt with very well at all, and they were living in absolutely squalid conditions.
Yeah.
But there were, and there was, there was raping going on, there was sexual assault going on, there was, fights breaking out.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine a massive working really.
Right. See,
for any particular for any sort of length of time anyway.
Right. We don't want to make the same mistake we made back when Hitler told all the Jews to get the fuck out of Germany. When Hitler told all the Jews to get the fuck out of Germany, America was like, well, we're not taking you. And that
Yeah.
became a problem. That 3 million Jews died because of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have to look at our past. We have to learn from our past, but we also have to learn from the recent past. And we know that these people, even in the Quran, it tells them to take advantage of others' compassion. It tells them to take advantage of those who would do and to lie. There's literally a specific tenet in the Quran. It has a name. I don't know exactly what it's called, but it actually has a name, and it is the practice of lying in order to infiltrate your enemy. And we have to be
I didn't know
careful of
that.
that.
No.
Yeah, we have to be careful of that. Here, let me look it up. It has a name and everything. Just a sec.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the fact that the people over here are having an emotional response to refugees, and you know, it's the kind of think of the children kind of thing, and you know, that's fair enough. Yeah, it's horrible and all that, but you've got to be realistic. Say, oh, we could take X amount of refugees, you know, how many hundreds of thousands. But yeah, you need to look at the recent past. I mean, the very recent past, and just look at what's happening in Germany as a result of 1 million migrants coming in. They've got the worst of sexual assault and rape and that kind of thing, and you can't just ignore that and say, well, we'll just let in 100,000 refugees.
Right. So this is called Takia. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. It's Taqiyya. And it establishes that there are circumstances that can compel a Muslim to tell a lie. So like Allah and his messenger are free from liability to the idolaters. That's the Quran 9:3. Quran 2:225 says Allah will not call you to account for thoughtlessness in your oaths, but for the intention in your hearts. And Quran 3:54 says, and they schemed, and Allah schemed against them, and Allah is the best of schemers. So it's just those are just a few of the quotes from the Quran that actually tell people to go ahead and lie to the idolaters, lie to the people that you're at war with. Another verse says, the prophet said, war is deceit. So we have to be very careful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm reminded of I don't know if you've ever heard of the massacre of Glencoe. It's a very Scottish sounding
No, I
thing
haven't
because
heard of
it
that.
is. Right, I think it was in the 1600s. I think there were some troops, government troops, were sent out to basically kill some rebels in Glencoe in the Highlands of Scotland, and they went into the little settlement where they were,
Mm-hmm.
and then instead of sort of facing what they thought they were going to face was insurgents. But
Mm-hmm.
actually, they just met a whole load of nice people, and it was winter, snow everywhere. And so they went, oh, you must come in, and stay the night because it's so cold.
Yeah.
So they did. They took advantage of the hospitality and then murdered them in their beds.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the same
So the
basic thing.
troops just murdered the people who let them in and gave them food and.
Yeah, it's fucked. It's yeah, and it's that same thing that we have to be careful of is because when their holy book tells them that that's something they should do to get an advantage on their enemy, then that's something that the enemy should be looking out for.
Yeah, I think it's part of this SJW culture, isn't it? It's any objective truths or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But what about my feelings on this? I feel really bad that these people are being killed. It's like, well, I feel really bad that these people are getting raped.
Mm-hmm.
Once they come across. You can't say this about the migrants. The German government were actively suppressing stories about the Cologne sex attacks and
Yeah.
things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's fucked, and it shouldn't. I just don't understand why anyone would think that bringing these things up is a bad thing. You know, if someone's
Right, yeah.
if you bring up something terrible that happened,
Mhm.
racist.
Yeah. Oh,
It's like,
well, you're just
how,
saying that because a Muslim. No, I wouldn't. Okay, if the Westboro Baptist Church was over in another country and all of a sudden they were under attack and persecution, you ain't coming the fuck over here. Fuck you.
yeah, exactly. I mean, somebody you should try and speak to about this is Crowton T. I don't know if you've seen.
I have seen some of his stuff. Yeah.
Right. Well, today he went on a Twitter tirade, basically, and was. I don't know if he was just shitposting, or was in a seriously bad mood, or was just feeling a bit devil may care. I don't know, but he just spent about 5 hours just going hell for leather on anyone that was supportive of Muslims or Islam in general.
Yeah.
In his videos, he usually seems quite rational, but yeah, today he did seem to go off the deep end a little bit. I don't know if he was just doing it to get a rise, but I wouldn't be surprised if his Twitter gets deleted. Especially since Islamophobia is now sort of crime number one.
Yeah.
Twitter Trust and Safety Council.
Yeah.
It's a scary thing, but no, I think Kraut would be quite up for a discussion about this. He's very passionate about the subject.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, okay, if you're actually paying attention to the things that are going on, I have been keeping up on what's been going on ever since the ISIS rose. I knew we'd take care of Al Qaeda, and I knew that they were a small group that was going to be hard to find. That we were going to have a hard time finding them because they were small and because they weren't doing anything real big. They did that one huge attack on us, but they weren't really capable of much more. The problem with ISIS that I've noticed is when we came in, America went in, we killed the leader of Iraq, who sadly enough was the only one keeping these terrorists at bay. We killed him, and then we left. We created this vacuum of power that needed to be filled, and that vacuum was filled by ISIS. And I've watched the rise of ISIS since they broke off from Al Qaeda, and I've watched everything that they've done with amazement. And I've said we let this happen. America, the Western coalition that went into there, let this happen because not only did we supply them with arms when they were fighting against Assad, we gave them American weapons. We also we did not leave anything there to protect the brand new baby government of Iraq that we just helped instill. And when we did that, we gave them every reason to hate us. And we gave them plenty of opportunity to get a huge following. So not only did we create the problem over there, now we have to fix that problem over there and create a problem here in America? I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are lucky in a way though, because you've got oceans between you and them. I mean, I know we've got a little channel between us and Europe, but there's a tunnel between France and England. But yeah, it is a problem of our own making.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most of the training that they've got and everything is a result of poor choices by America and the UK. Even, just about everything, every sort of current war or conflict or anything like that can be traced back to some kind of imperialism. And
right.
I realise that makes me sound a little bit sort of SJW, but they misuse the word imperialism.
Yeah.
Obviously, because they misuse every word pretty much.
Yeah.
Stuff like Israel and Palestine. That's obviously a complicated mess, but that was mostly due to the British.
Mm-hmm.
Before the First World War even ended, and then we just made matters worse. And America made it worse with flying the Israelis with arms and stuff.
Yep.
So it's just just seems to be no one seems to be learning from these mistakes, and no
Right.
one seems to be able to see how this can be resolved diplomatically. So keep bombing them then. It's
Right.
like, right, okay, that's just like kicking the hornet's nest, though, isn't it? You're just going to make them more and more angry and more determined to fight.
Yeah.
Um,
So
even if you wiped out everyone who's fighting, it's you're not going to solve the problem.
Right. Well, so Data Wasteland is saying that we can go back since World War II. England and the USA have been messing with the Middle East. That's true, but see, we can go even back further if you want to.
Yeah.
The generally Christian nations and the Muslim nations have been at war since the inception of Islam. That's just how it's been. The Islamists back before the what do you call them? The Crusades started, were killing Christians, beheading Christians, doing all kinds of crazy things, and they weren't happy about it. The Christians weren't happy about it, so they went, and that's what started the Crusades. So everybody points back at the Crusade and say, "Oh, the Christian did this horrible thing." Yeah, it was horrible, but it was in response to them being, killed and murdered and crucified and all this other stuff by the Muslims, and it's been since then that it's been since then that the Muslims and the Western nations, because they're mostly Christian, have been in a perpetual war with each other.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the troubles in Ireland as well. You can kind of see it on a really small level, so between gangs and stuff like that. Something happens to a gang member, and then so that gang retaliates, and then the other guys retaliate, and it just is back and forth, back and forth.
It becomes an endless war.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's I suppose it's the same with all these different countries, and a lot of it's kind of our fault. But I don't know if we still have an obligation or a duty to try and help them, or do we actually say, you know what, we've made enough mistakes and we've fucked this up so much, we should maybe just get the hell out of there and let them fight amongst themselves. I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah. It's okay. So if we let them fight amongst themselves, a lot of people seem to make this mistake. If ISIS takes over the Middle East, they're coming after the West next. That's just how
that's true.
happen.
Yeah.
So we have to step in at some point. We have to, because their whole idea is to make an Islamic world, not just the Middle East. So we are going to have to address it at one point. And I'd rather address it while they're smaller and weaker than while they're big and huge with nukes.
Yeah. No, this is true. It's just, at what point do you intervene? But I mean, I reckon that in terms of ISIS, they don't seem to be doing very well.
No, they're actually being degraded right now, like Obama said.
Yeah. There doesn't seem to be. They're not going to last much longer, I don't think. But obviously, a lot of them have escaped into Europe because of the migrant crisis.
Exactly. But see, and so we shouldn't. But at the same time, it shouldn't have taken us this long to step in. You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't have taken us this. It shouldn't take us this long to destroy them. The West altogether, America's got the world's most badass army, and then the rest of the Western world is pretty armed to their teeth too. It wouldn't be very difficult to take them all out. I just don't see why it's taken this long.
Probably vested interests. I think there's money to be made.
Yeah, on a slow war, on a slow burning war. Yeah.
And obviously the Clintons had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
So another reason, another thing to put down on reasons not to vote for Hillary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Trump said something, and that cancels everything else out that Hillary's done.
What's that?
I was just saying, yeah, but it doesn't matter. Have made loads of money from like that. Trump said a bad thing, so therefore that counters everything.
That cancels out everything else that she's done. Yeah, it's we created that political quagmire that's over there as allies. The England, the United States, the whole Western world. We've created that mess in a way. And we have to step in and save the world from it, which is sad, but it has to be done. And there are a lot of different ways that I would do it. But thank God I'm not president. I would be dropping bombs on Mecca. They say they say in the Quran that the temple will never be destroyed or something like that. Well, if we destroy it, then we've disproved their entire religion. We win.
Well, they'll manage to think of a way around it.
Right,
It's the same thing. They would just say, "Oh, well, obviously God is angry at us, so we must fight, or we must." They'll think somewhere because it's not based in any
actual logical thinking. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's not based in objective reality, but in any sense whatsoever.
Right. I mean, again, thank God I'm not the president, and if I were the president, I may not do that. But I'm just saying,
I think you'd get voted out pretty quickly. I think.
Yeah. If I ever plan on running for president, I didn't mean what I just said. Just for future dirt diggers there. No.
Really? That's not going to be your campaign slogan?
Bomb Mecca.
Make Mecca flat again.
Right. Yes, exactly. So no. Make the Middle East glass again.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it's pretty serious though, and it's something that the greatest minds in America are supposedly thinking about, and the greatest minds in England are supposedly thinking about, but for some reason we still haven't found an actual solution. Luckily, it looks like ISIS is falling apart. They're being pushed back, but we can't make the mistake of, after we get rid of them, of just leaving again and letting another group come up and rise the way ISIS did.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, part of me thinks just the same thing's going to happen again. ISIS will get destroyed. Somebody else will just come in and take their place.
Exactly.
Just seems to be an endless stream of ideologues and religious zealots just ready to take their place.
Yeah.
So it's I really I mean it's not obviously it's not something within my remit. I'm just some random guy in freezing cold Scotland at the moment. Just how would I fix the Middle East? It's a bit pretentious of me to even sort of offer an opinion on how to do it, but you'd like to think that you'd be able to put a government in, but even the moderates don't believe in democracy.
Yeah.
Or a vast majority of the moderates don't believe in the democratic process. So how do you deal with that? You can't just go, right, we're going to have elections, because they would just vote in the most radical Islamic party.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of it, as you say, is our fault, because obviously in Iran, in the 70s, the FBI, not the FBI, the CIA rather, they obviously, the revolution and all that kind of thing. That was obviously a bad thing to happen, because I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of Iran and Afghanistan in the 70s and 60s and all that.
No.
And women are going about, and I had a friend whose mum lived in Iran, married an Iranian man, and then as soon as the revolution happened, she came back here because she was a white woman in in Iran at that time. Wouldn't have been very good, so she had to run away. And sorry, you go.
No, go ahead. Say what you were going to say.
No, it was just it was just, as far as I can tell, any time that we try and have a go at fixing something, we make it worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I don't think, and as I say, I don't think installing a government based on our values would go down well anyway.
I mean, what about, and this is a pretty controversial idea, but what about an American or English annexation of the Middle East?
You mean colonize them again?
Yes, annex it as an American or English territory.
I suppose it's possible. I don't think it would be a particularly positive thing to do.
Well,
And that would,
no solution's going to be positive. No solution's going to be
well, no,
make everyone happy.
No, I guess not. No, you're right. Annexation. Oh, that's an interesting one. I've never really thought of that.
Yeah, because if the Western world annexes the Middle East, then they are directly responsible for the freedoms and happiness of the people there. And we could actually make it more civil. Yeah, they're still going to have their arguments, but if we actually go in there with the full force of America or England or whoever behind it, we could actually maybe possibly get some peace in the Middle East.
I agree to an extent, but I just know that it would be abused.
Yeah. And
imagine taking over all these Middle Eastern countries. Suddenly we're in charge of their oil and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think that would go down very well.
Right. Yeah. And the rest of the world would be upset. And there would still be a lot of Islamic extremists who now have even more reason to hate the West because we've taken over their country.
Yeah. And the other thing is what constitutes the Middle East? I mean, obviously countries like Saudi Arabia and
Syria,
technically Egypt, and Syria, and I mean Pakistan's full of Muslims as well.
Yeah.
So at what point?
At what point do you stop? I get that.
Yeah. Where's the cutoff point? Where's the cutoff point? That's right. Is what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. It's again. That's just amusing. Amusing that I'm saying. It's something I thought of.
Yeah.
It's.
I mean, we've seen how the colonial powers elsewhere couldn't hold on to their territories,
like India.
Well, yes, exactly. Yes, obviously, British Empire spent a lot. We spent a lot of money. Me.
Yeah.
No. Obviously, a long time before I was around. Obviously there was revolts and all that kind of thing. But I mean, again, that might have been because of the way that it was handled. Because obviously, any sort of uprising or insurgents or anything like that was just done and just destroyed. Whereas if you could do it in such a way that still let them be in charge of their own countries in a sort of democratic, governmental kind of way, but again, I think it would just be abused by the upper echelons in our societies, and they would just basically become kind of puppet governments to the US or to the UK or any sort of coalition of these countries.
Mm-hmm. So Data Wasteland brought up PNAC, which is something I do know a little bit about. It's the Project for a New American Century. Back when I was entertaining the idea of the 9/11 truthers, I was reading through the Project for a New American Century papers. And basically it's where a bunch of politicians, I believe Dick Cheney was involved in that, I'm not sure, got together and were trying to come up with a way to basically make the world American in a way.
Okay.
And one of the things that they were talking about as a way to globalize the American ideal was that they specifically said it would take something, and this was in September of 2000 that this paper was released. They said it would take something equivalent to Pearl Harbor for us to put our plans into place or something like that. And yeah, it was basically, but the biggest part of it was about destabilizing the Middle East. So a lot of
there's been like a false flag.
yes,
That's when everyone started.
Yeah, so a lot of
the false flag.
Yep, a lot of truthers looked at that and saw that was a declaration of a false flag attack. And while, again, I believe that you can entertain an idea without accepting it, I did entertain the idea, but I'm not a truther. But the but the PNAC idea, the PNAC papers are very real, and they are a very real musing by high government officials about how to destabilize the Middle East and how to make the world more American, to fall under the American ideals. And so Alex Jones was shouting about it being the basically the charter for the New World Order. The truthers were shouting about it being a declaration of the false flag attack. But to me, it just looks more like a bunch of high government officials with a hard-on for globalism.
Yeah, I don't really know anything about PNAC. I had heard about the papers and how they related to, well, then the truthers taking that as the Pearl Harbor thing.
Right. Yeah.
I had heard about that before, but I didn't look into it in too much detail. I mean, the world is Americanized. More so the advent of the internet as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, yes, obviously, a lot of places don't hold the same ideals. But I don't think it's something that you can. They're not universal ideals, because I mean, you say you've probably seen sort of interviews with moderate Muslims in the UK or in the Middle East, and they say, "Oh, would you like democracy?" And they're just like, "No, Allah, is the ultimate arbiter of truth." And
yeah,
so it doesn't matter how much you show them the benefits of, they're against it.
Yeah.
How would you Americanize people who don't want to? They don't even want to hear it.
Well, through the same way that they, at least the media, controls the vast, at least until recently, how the media has controlled the vast majority of indoctrination of Americans. You could do the same thing in another country. It would take a while. But if you repeat something to a population loud enough and repeat it enough times, they will actually start to believe it. The 2 + 2 = 5 thing is a very real thing that can happen in psychology. You can very easily make people turn on a dime as long as you have the proper media being pointed at them.
Well, I guess so, but the other thing is, obviously, I think really the best way to do it would be through education.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. That would be the best way, and most least insidious way of doing it.
Yeah. Well, basically, yeah, because I mean, most people, the more educated they become, that saw the decline of Christianity in the West was when it became free for everybody to learn how to read.
Right.
So as soon as people were able to read the Bible from themselves, they started. Well, obviously not everybody, but a lot of people would read it and go, oh, "Wait a minute, I've never read this bit before. They never read that bit at church before." And people started to be able to think critically.
Right. Yeah.
But again, I think if you imposed an education system onto a society such as in the Middle East, and trying to instill Western values, there's the used again, and as you say, just become more insidious and be more brainwashing like the media.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we've been doing it since the media became a thing, especially visual media became a thing. in the United States, at least back in even over the radio during World War II, there was a lot of anti Japanese propaganda being spread. People were being convinced to hate the Japanese. There's no reason to hate the Japanese people. They had no clue what was going on when it came to their government attacking us. But it became a thing where we were rounding up Japanese people and putting them in camps because and the propaganda that was going along with it made every American, well, mostly every American, of course not all, mostly every American believe that this was an okay thing for us to do. Yeah. Hashtag not all. That it was an okay thing for us to do. It really wasn't. We shouldn't have been doing that. We shouldn't have been holding people who especially weren't even over there accountable for the actions of their governments. Especially when Japan is not a democracy. The people there were not responsible for their leaders. But it's things like that. Propaganda has always been a thing, even though it's illegal in the United States for propaganda to be a thing. It's still a thing.
Yeah, and sometimes laws can be things in times of war, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other point is that yes, people were told to hate the Japanese, and I think there was a hangover from that afterwards, though, wasn't there? There was quite a lot of anti-Japanese sentiment long after the war, from what I believe. Yeah, so it's got its pros and cons, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
You do sort of want to unite the people under a common cause, but then magic of it, if you then at the end of the war say, "Oh, we were just joking," you have to go back to how you were before.
Go back to loving the Japanese. Wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work that way. So Japan is kind of worried now that Trump has become president because of the things that he said about they either need to pay for our protection or they need to not have our protection. When it comes to Japan, I disagree with Trump on that, because we bombed the shit out of Japan and then we told them, hey, guess what? You're not allowed to have a standing military. So we have crippled them by our laws, by our treaties. We crippled them. So I don't think it's very fair to put that onus on Japan to now protect themselves again. And the leaders over there are saying that will completely destroy their economy. And I don't think.
Yeah, and Japan has now got a very bizarre culture, obviously, because they were westernized very quickly, and I don't think they knew how to deal with it properly.
Yeah. In a way,
you're not allowed to criticize that culture, though, because they're not classed as being white, obviously.
Right. We very quickly took them over, and we took them over in a new way back after World War II. It was a new kind of takeover. We took them over with a document. We have nothing to do with their government except for, how we have to do with every other government, talking and trying to work things out. But we have nothing to do with their government, but we still have complete control over their economy. We have complete control over what their government can do, because we have crippled their ability to have a military. So they have to go by our rules, or they're going to have problems.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way to to go into a country and to change it. Because obviously, if in terms of the Middle East, we're sort of discussing how we would change it. I don't think there's any way of doing it that is going to appease.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get any problems at the end of it.
Right. Exactly.
Japan, obviously, it's very, very peaceful country now. Obviously, there's a legacy there that is directly, you can trace it right back to the end of the Second World War. So yeah, there's no, I don't think there is any easy solutions. Well, I suppose there are easy solutions, but even they've got their own foibles and their own problems.
There's no consequence-free solution. And unfortunately, that's just real life. That's just how it is. No matter what you do, there's going to be consequences. And when you're talking on big, grand scales like countries, those consequences are going to be big and grand. And it's no matter what you do.
Yeah, that's basically it. 'Cause, I mean, again, it's something that happens, you know, even on a small scale. I mean, even you know, even in little towns and stuff,
Mhm.
you know, people will you know come up with some solution for something, and then it'll have a negative impact on something else. And
Yep. Well,
but
like I'm very
by the
much
time you,
against illegal immigrants in the United States. But I know
yeah,
that if we deport 3 million illegal immigrants, our economy is going to suffer.
yeah,
We'll be able to recover, but it's going to suffer. And there's going to be some hard times in America if that happens. I would tell people, you know, we can get through it. It'll be okay. This is for the greater good, but there's definitely a consequence to it.
yeah, yeah. There's never going to be a good solution to this, because then how do you decide which illegals to deport and which ones not to? Unless you do like a phased deportation, you know, you do,
Right.
you know,
Very
you know, like
slowly. And
yeah,
so that the jobs that are lost by those illegal immigrants can be filled by legal and so
yeah,
by American citizens. But the thing is like a lot of companies are going to have to restructure the way they pay people, especially if they're very heavy on illegal immigrant usage. They would have to either fail or completely restructure the way they do business. Um, so while that is an unintended consequence, it's something that we are going to have to get through. But I don't think that should stop us from getting the parasites out of us. You know?
yeah. I mean, it's the same here in the UK. If you say anything legal or otherwise, you know, you're just called a racist outright.
Right.
Um, there doesn't seem to be any nuance in there either. They just you just say immigrant, or you know, I think we should put a cap on immigration, or I think we should reduce the amount of immigration, anything like that. Oh, you're racist then.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
No,
just
I'm
want to
not
protect my
racist. No,
country.
protecting your country is seen as nationalist.
Right. Okay. So say there was some horrible thing going on in England right now. Okay, say like there was some kind of chemical attack that was happening. We needed to take refugees in by the millions. No. We can't do that. I know most of you are white, but hold on a second. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if it was, yeah, you're right. If it was from a country which has mostly white people in it,
Mhm.
we would apply the same, you know,
The same reasoning behind.
same
Yeah,
reasoning
yeah,
would be applied consistently, and you know, and just because of where most of these migrants are coming from, happen to be brown,
hmm
race issue, rather
right.
than rather than you know looking after your own first sort of thing.
Yeah, there's a
And I realise that obviously if Trump does sort of done some of his promises, you know, about putting American American jobs for American people first,
right,
that is going to have right around the world because America is
right,
a superpower. But in the UK, for example, a huge impact. At least not immediately. Um, Especially not if we actually do ever leave the EU. I think if we were in the EU, yeah, it would have a big effect on the EU. But I don't think out of the EU it would have as much of an effect.
right.
But definitely in America, I think it will reverberate around the globe.
So Data Wasteland, there's a couple things here in chat that I wanted to bring up. Data Wasteland brought up there was a back in the 30s. I believe JP
So the coup d'etat.
Morgan. Yeah, there was a failed coup d'etat in America. It was JP Morgan was a part of it, I believe, and they wanted to instill basically, I think it was some kind of shadow government or something. And JFK actually alluded to that and a few other secret societies and secret things that happened. Where he was like, America has a history with secret societies and all this stuff. We should not be able to tolerate that. We should not tolerate that. I just thought that was interesting. I wanted to bring that up. That yeah, we've had failed coup d'etat in America before, and it was by the elite. It was the elite who tried to take over the country. But it failed.
All right, I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to look at it.
Yeah, it wasn't a violent coup d'etat or anything. They were caught. They were caught and they were I don't think any of them were jailed. I'm not too sure, but I know they were caught and nothing really tremendous happened with it. But yeah, they were a lot of the wealthy families were funding Hitler. Ford, I believe, was helping Hitler out with some funds. So yeah, America's elites really do like profiting off of war, which is a sad thing. It's something that that we need to kind of purge out of our country. But we can't do it very well because anytime someone says, "Oh, the elitists are this or the elitists are doing this," it's considered a conspiracy theory. And it's another danger. It's just as dangerous as any other threat to a country is elitists actually taking over, because they have no idea what the smaller people think like or what they want,
Yeah, as I say, I hadn't actually heard anything about this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was like JP Morgan was involved in it. I don't know the entire depth of what happened, but they were legitimately trying to actually take over the country. And a lot of conspiracy theorists use that as a starting ground for, oh, well, that they failed then, but who's to say they failed the second time? And now the Illuminati is in control. And oh my God, put on your tinfoil hat. But
is it anything to do with the Rothschilds and all that?
Oh yeah, a ton to do with that. With the Rothschild, JP Morgan, and JP Morgan is the guy. He's like Chase Bank. That's his baby. It's a big corporation. And then there was something else I saw. Hold on a second here.
Too much shit posting going on. I can't see what it is.
It says, not trying to be mean, but Obama deported a shit ton of illegals. Yes.
Rightly so.
And it's entirely true. He did more deportations than I believe Bush did. But now that's not a good argument against whether or not it will affect our economy, because Trump is talking about 3 million instantly, just like that, like get them out like that.
Yeah. And
a big surge of workers leaving the country like that will have some impact.
Yeah. So as I say, the only way I could see around that would be doing some sort of phased deportations.
Yeah.
So unless Trump gets impeached, based on our current record, pretty much every president has been able to serve 2 terms since Congress made it so that, well, since there was an amendment put in that presidents could only get 2 terms, presidents have had both of their terms, unless they've been impeached or something. So I really think
I don't think Trump's going to run again.
You don't think Trump's going to even try for a second term?
No, I don't. I don't think so. I don't have any real basis for that. It's just a hunch, really, rather than any.
Well, I mean, I could see where the hunch could come from. He is going to be 74 when his first term is done, maybe 75. I don't know his exact birth date, but he will be about 74, 75. That's pretty old.
Yeah, pretty old. And part of me thinks that he didn't actually think he would win the election. I think he You know, he seems to be sort of the reluctant president, if you ask me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he said he was asked back in the 90s if he wanted to run for president. And he said, no, I have no desire to be president. The only reason I would ever run is if the country got so bad that I thought I needed to come in and fix it. But I don't want to be president, and you don't want me to be president. That's exactly what he said.
Yeah. Yeah, and when as the election night was rolling on, he seemed to get more and more depressed.
Yeah,
but
as he's winning, he's getting more and more. Oh my god!
He's it's just actually happening now. Shit, what
yeah,
we do?
These fucktards actually voted me in. Fuck.
So hopefully, if he stays for the 4 years, yeah, hopefully he doesn't or anything, then we get Pence.
Oh, that would be awful. That would be awful for America and the entire West. Yeah.
Yeah.
For a president to step down for not even a mid controversy, but just to say I don't want to do this anymore, that'd be fucked.
Yeah, I mean, has that ever happened in the US? Has any president stepped down?
I don't think so. No. I don't take my word for that. I don't have a degree in history or anything, but I really think that hasn't happened. No.
Chat. Does anyone in chat know?
Yeah, some people in chat know a lot about that. So let's see has anyone ever stepped down from the presidency in America?
It's happened in the UK.
Well,
I mean,
Nixon resigned. Nixon resigned amid controversy. Nixon was basically forced to resign because he was impeached. That's a bit different.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's happened here in the UK quite a few times. Obviously, it's not president, prime minister. I mean, David Cameron after.
He was butthurt about Brexit.
Oh, he was completely butthurt about Brexit. So he stepped down. So then the Conservative Party, they had to have a vote on who was going to be its leader, and that's how we have our second female minister.
So
by default, really.
Is Scotland in the same boat as Ireland when it comes to like not really wanting to be part of the UK, or no?
Well, we had an independence referendum in 2014. And we voted to stay in the UK.
Okay.
I actually voted to leave the UK.
Right.
But yeah, there's still quite a big quite a big sentiment to have another referendum. But again, it's this kind of idea that just keep having referendums until you get the right result that you want. But yeah. There's a large sort of sentiment where people want to leave the rest of the UK,
right?
But not large enough.
Because I know Ireland and Scotland did not become part of the UK willingly.
Well, it's more complicated than that. Ireland definitely didn't.
Ireland was basically just colonized.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
And most of Ireland is independent. There's the top sort of northeastern corner is Northern Ireland as opposed to the Republic of Ireland. The Republic of Ireland is Northern Ireland is just a little bit up the top, part of the UK, and the UK. So the UK consists of Northern Ireland, Scotland, England, and Wales. They all have their own parliaments.
Okay.
Technically, England doesn't have its own parliament. It's because it's the parliament. It's the one parliament to rule them all, kind of thing.
Yeah.
They don't actually have a devolved parliament of their own, which is something that I'm in favour of. Is them having their own parliament.
Definitely.
Because what can happen is, like it's quite a complicated system, but basically. The Scottish members of Parliament can vote on English laws, but not the other way around.
Huh. Well, it seems like Scotland kind of has the upper hand then.
Well, you'd think so, except that we're not fully devolved. So there are issues that the Scottish Parliament can't vote on. So it's a fact that people often miss out.
Right.
Because basically the English they're quite often butthurt and say, oh, well, you guys can vote on things that happen in our country, but we can't do it the other way around. So, well, no, because the things that you're voting on and the things that you're voting on apply to the whole of the UK,
Right.
usually. So it's quite a complicated sort of system.
Scotland's basically, I mean, obviously Scotland has its own culture, its own history, its own heritage. And so when you're basically saying Scotland can't make its own rules, it has to just vote on the English rules, and that applies to them too.
Well, no, because we have our own parliament as well. We have our own parliament, so we can vote on things, and the Scottish Parliament can vote on things that have been devolved to the Scottish Parliament.
Okay.
So I can't think of any examples off the top of my head at the moment.
That's fine. I mean, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but in terms of saying that Scotland became part of the UK against its will, yes and no.
Okay.
Basically, there was what was called the Union of the Crowns. As you're probably aware, most of the aristocracy and royalty throughout Europe are heavily inbred.
Yeah.
And yeah. So basically what happened was Scotland and England, fighting for hundreds of years, had their own royalty, had their own kings, an English king and a Scottish king, always fighting each other.
Right.
And then Queen Elizabeth I happened.
Okay.
And she didn't have any offspring.
Oh, okay.
Because there was close links between the two royal families. The heir to the English throne was the Scottish king.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, we gained England, but then what happened was the king would basically go between Scotland and England as he saw fit. But as the generations went on, they spent more and more time in England. Yeah, someone said in the chat that James VI of Scotland became James I of England, and his subsequent offspring spent more and more time down in London.
So wasn't James?
Sorry.
Wasn't James VI the king that basically brought the English witch trials to Scotland?
No, not entirely sure. Possible. I think it's him who the King James Bible's named after, I believe.
Right.
I don't know. I don't think they were particularly serious witch in Scotland that I'm aware of. There probably would have been.
Yeah, because I know that it. Okay, have there been more than one King James in Scotland?
Well, yeah. If he was James VI, then
right.
Gives you an idea.
Yeah. Okay. Because
I think there was a seventh as well. So James II of England.
Because I do enjoy history, and one of the things, just a little tidbit that I think, a little tangent you might find interesting. One of the King Jameses from Scotland had a wife that he was going to take from, it was either England or Wales, I can't remember, but he was going to, and he went there, and because she was trying to come to him, and all of her escort boats got destroyed in a storm, and her boat had to limp back to the shore. And so he finally went over there and found out that people were doing witchcraft spells to try and kill his wife. And that infuriated him. So there were witch trials going on in England at the time. And when King James finally got back to Scotland, he started saying, okay, we need to get rid of these witches, because he found out there were some in Scotland that were trying to do spells for the same thing, because I think they didn't want England and Scotland to be connected by the marriage. And
well, the connection happened 7 with the Union of the Crowns. Basically, instead of the king being known as King of Scotland and King of England, it became Kingdom, and then they actually expanded that to being eventually it was King of the United Kingdom and Ireland and Emperor of India and so on and so on.
Right. So so I just looked it up. It was James the First who brought the witch trials to Scotland. Oh no,
I don't remember that.
The wholesale persecution of witches started in Scotland in 1590 when James VI was king, the future James the First of England.
Okay.
Witchcraft had been a criminal offense in Scotland prior to 1590, but action against suspected witches was limited. However, after 1590 and in the last 13 years of the reign of James, Scotland fully accepted the Christian witch theory, so that when one witch was found, others were hunted out.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I learned something today too.
So yeah, it was James the Sixth. So pretty interesting. I'm a history buff. I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, me too. There's just so much history to catch up on. That's the thing.
Yeah, there definitely is. I love it. But this has been fun, man. This has been great.
Yeah, this has been good, and it's might need to think about wrapping up though, because it's now midnight here.
Yep.
So,
and I was thinking the same thing.
And I need a pee.
So. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you Tailed Feature for joining us. Everyone subscribe to Tailed Feature. Great guy, and we'll do this again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's been great fun. Thanks for having me on.
All right. I'll see you later.
I've got to say sorry to Ferg because I just asked him to come into the chat and we're just finished.
Oh no, I'm so sorry, Ferg. We'll do this again. I promise.
Yeah, we will. We'll do it again just for you.
Yes, just for you. All right. Bye, guys.
Cheers, guys.